Welcome back to Beulah Disc Golf Course. My name is Tim Anderson and I'm the head greenskeeper up here. In this video we're discussing one of my favorite areas, basket placement and greens. We just talked about a hot topic in the previous video, that of artificial OB. But I think this should be the hot topic when it comes to design. Why? Because it's the fairest way to make our courses tougher. It's also more interesting and more fun. It eats me up a little bit when I see a course that has plenty of character and woods only to have baskets placed out in the open and in the flat. With all the talk about redesigning baskets so they are smaller in order to make putting tougher, there might be less of a need for it if the greens were tougher. Let's go into the Wayback Machine to 2021 Worlds. The Fort course up in Utah had loads of huge dead trees laying about the greens in different positions. The players had to really know each green and place their shots so they would have a good putt at the basket. That's where we should be on all of our courses. A smart player should have an advantage. No, we don't need dead trees laying everywhere on every single course. We need tough greens with thought put into them. A basket sitting out on a nice grassy flat area by itself does look nice, but that's about it. It should be the exception. Let's look again at ball golf. The greens are a huge part of the game. They spend an enormous amount of money maintaining, watering, and mowing them. Any guess how much it can cost to install a golf green? If you guessed between $50,000 and $80,000 each, then you win a prize. Woohoo! $500 for a basket seems pretty cheap right about now. When they install a golf green, they sculpt and shape each one so that each one is a unique experience. I remember once being in a spot where I had a straight putt, as well as a path 30 degrees to the right and another 30 degrees to the left. 3 paths to the hole. It was fun and memorable. A lot of greens have 2 tiers, which are fun if you have a putt up to the top or bottom at an angle. And then there's the speed of the green, which is measured using a stimp meter. A high stimp reading means the ball will roll really easy and far, like putting on a pool table. For us, we need wind to make for a fast green. If I were to make an analogy between many of our courses' greens to those of ball golf, I would see a ball golf course filled with big, round, uniform, slow surfaces, with them angled perfectly to catch the ball super easy, and with the pin stuck dead center.
Super easy, barely an inconvenience.
A while back, on one of the foundation videos, they were discussing basket placement. And Brody Smith took the stance that all baskets should be out in the open with no objects in the way inside the circle, or something to that effect. The good thing is, he later changed his mind, and now thinks it's okay to have the basket in the trees. He came from the world of ball golf and probably had to make some adjustments to his thinking. Let's touch on another topic that's received quite a bit of discussion over the last few years, that of basket design. Should baskets be tougher or smaller? I think with good course design, that isn't needed. And when the wind is blowing, our current baskets are plenty tough. The good thing about a tough green design is that the wind is just additive. A smaller basket would be abusive in the wind, but putting around a tree in the wind isn't really that different. And while we're on the topic, I'll throw in my 2 cents about the whole progression of the sport and what has changed the most. It isn't discs as much as it is baskets. Go find yourself a Mach 1, 2, or 3 and imagine putting your normal putts at those in a tournament. Sure, discs are very different and go further, but it's still just execution. But putting on those old baskets was a different thing altogether. An ace on those baskets was much, much harder. You remember all of them. I would love for some MIT student to do a project designing a new disc golf target. How about a solar-powered pole with a zone that when touched had a directional tone or speaker that said the hole number and had to be reset, or would reset itself after a few minutes? No bounce outs. Sounds crazy? But it would be fun to have something different. What about gel sleeves on the poles inside the chains that would absorb the disc? Some of the brands could use a little help with bounce backs, but it's all got to be approved. And if you think our rules for equipment specs are strict, they are nothing compared to ball golf. So what do we do to make greens tougher? Elevate the baskets and hang them from trees? I don't mind an elevated basket as long as it's not a high-rise, but if you need more in order to make the course tough or interesting, you have other issues. Remember the discussion about randomness. The higher you elevate a basket, the more randomness you introduce. It has diminishing returns. But if you have a tree begging for a hanging basket, that can be fun and fits the character of your course, but it might not be for the tour. How about a basket inside a tree? Now that can be iconic. Now, some of these stranger examples we're seeing here aren't on tour courses, and that's awesome because they fit the vibe of their course. And some are on par 2 pitch and putt courses, which are a blast. I'm more addressing tournament courses in my comments here. Okay, we mentioned wood chips and pine straw in the bullseye, so it's a no-brainer that there should definitely not be any roads, cart paths, or concrete inside of C1. If a shot is landing inbounds in the circle, it shouldn't skip 50 feet away in my opinion. And if there are surfaces like this on your course, you don't put OB near them. They could just skip right out. The next thing to touch on that is used around the green is the drop zone, and there are a couple ways they are used. One is out on the course for when someone goes OB, and the drop zone is placed in a spot that makes the next shot tough, but not too tough. I'm not sure how much I like these, and they seem to be a little overused, but that's really got to be looked at on a course-by-course basis. The other type is what we see around the green, and often when someone misses on an island hole or something of that type. Instead of a short putt where they want out, they go to the drop zone for a putt where they have to make a choice. It's a dangerous putt, probably no longer than 60 feet. Do they lay up or risk going OB again? Choices. Set the distance, and over the months or years, watch and learn. Do people go for it too often? Make it often? You have to be a student of your course. Fine-tune it over time. Run a couple of C tiers on it, and someday you'll be ready for a bigger tournament. I mean, I hope nobody would ask someone to host a tour-level tournament on an untested course. But let's look at some examples of a few greens here for discussion's sake. When walking a property, the thing I might look for is natural fairways and also greens. A group of trees with a nice opening coming inside, a drop-off behind a level area, a cool tree leaning over a spot. I'm looking for a challenge and a visual aspect as well. If someone wants to take a picture of a hole and it's challenging, we have a winner. Now, how can we make these greens less random at the same time? We mentioned the pole saw earlier. Walk all parts of the green and check your sight lines. Is there a place where there is absolutely no putt? Should there be one from here? How about wood chips and pine straw? That stuff is awesome because in the bullseye it keeps a disc from both skipping overly much and also cuts down on rollaways. Pour it on there. And as mentioned earlier, you can place logs or rocks strategically down the slopes to stop rollaways, not too close of course, but within long putting range. And when building up a basket area underneath, think hard about what you're using. Those planter style boxes aren't awesome, but rough and jagged stone is really hard on the plastic. I know the disc manufacturers would rather you went that route. Smooth rocks that don't create a ramp like a long piece of wood does can be a good solution. Looking at this course, hole 1, we have an elevated green above a road that I could make play as a type of hazard. Trees on the right and oak brush inside the circle that make you think about your approach. Hole 6 is very elevated and has oak brush that plays like a bunker in front, and a bunch of tall oaks on the right that you could putt out from underneath. Hole 7 is next to a drop-off, making for plenty of depth putts. Hole 8 has a couple logs guarding the front from this downhill drive and a drop-off blocked by a net on the back with an OB line. You gotta watch your angles when you're putting and landing on a slope like that. Hole 9 is an island green with a drop zone putting at an elevated basket near the edge. That's a risky putt from the drop zone. Hole 11 has a cool swale with this bent over tree to navigate while putting. I may lay some logs down at 45 feet so as to stop rollaways, minimizing the random destruction we talked about previously. 14 has this cool tree and branch right here with a nice gentle drop off about 25 feet at the back. If you find yourself down here, you still might have a putt back up at the basket, so it isn't overly painful. 17 is amazing looking with character from the trees and the ground. And 18 is on the edge of a root cellar of an old homestead. How cool is that? And just a reminder, this course you're seeing is at a retreat center in the mountains of southern Colorado, and we're doing a crowdfunding campaign to equip the course with a full set of good baskets, concrete tees, and T-signs. If you click on the pinned comment below, you can see the status of that. The cool thing about our campaign is, for donors of $500 and up, they can come stay at the retreat here with us for a few days or more and play some disc golf. Of course, we need small donations as well, so thanks for checking it out. To close, let's look at 10. If your approach goes to the right, you're behind jail right now. In the next video, we'll turn this jail into a bunker. But this green will still be one where you definitely want to keep your approach shot from going to the right. Forget OB lines, we've got jail.
Jail?
See you in the next video. I don't know what disc that is, but it tastes like chicken.